Hey guys, it's Dr. J here. Hope everyone's having a phenomenal night. Let's dive into a live Q&A. What's on y'all's mind? Let's dive into the natural health, nutrition, functional medicine world. All right, a couple of questions here in the queue. Paul writes in, what dose of GI detox should I take while eating heavy metal detox? So GI detox is a product that has various binders in it like bentonite clay. It has activated charcoal. It has some fulvic minerals. I think it also has some zeolite. So typically I'll take one capsule in the morning, one in between breakfast and lunch, and one between lunch and dinner. 2 to 3 capsules a day in between food, typically 30 to 45 minutes before and 2 to 3 hours after. That way it's not binding up any minerals or nutrition that's coming from your food or supplementation. So in between is great. Paul writes in, I'm 100% parasite free from the GI map. However, zonulin still 550. That's really high. How to heal leaky gut lining. Will this aid my fatigue, anxiety anytime I eat eggs? So it's hard to say. So nothing else came back with any other issues on the GI map. If that's good, excellent. What was your previous zonulin level when you had infections that you were addressing? Did you get a reading on that? How high was that? Has the reading come down at all? That'd be helpful. And also, how are you doing overall with your digestion? Do you feel like your digestion's doing well? How does your stools look? Do you feel like you're breaking down your food okay? Those would be important questions. But the fact that zonulin is elevated, I want to know more about your clinical picture than just that, but it helps. Hey, Elizabeth, hope you're doing well. Excellent. Any other questions? Feel free and chime in. I jumped on here for a late Q&A, so didn't give you all much notice. I'll be back tomorrow morning for another session. All right, Elizabeth writes in, how long does it take to reduce general inflammation and how may I do this? So you kind of have general inflammation like systemic inflammation that maybe you can monitor with like a highly sensitive C-reactive protein. It's kind of a general inflammation. Basically what happens is these inflammatory cytokines, they go in your bloodstream, they hit your liver, and then your liver makes this protein called CRP or C-reactive protein. That's a good marker for general inflammation. So the first thing that you can do to help that is good nutrition. All right, good healthy omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, lots of healthy fish, grass-fed meat, lots of vegetables, dialing in the quality of the food, organic fruit, organic veggies, and staying away from the grain-fed and the meat that has a whole bunch of hormones, antibiotics, and pesticides. So that's the first step. And I would say number 2 is adding in extra fish, maybe good quality fish oil, 1 to 2 grams a day would be excellent as well. That's your first step. Now, after that, you can supplement fish oil. You can add in curcumin. You can do CBD or systemic enzymes. These are all therapeutic things that you can do on top of that. Make sure your gut health is good. Make sure you're infection-free. These are all things on top of the foundations that I recommend. And of course, things like not over-exercising and making sure like you get enough sleep are really, really important. Okay, excellent. The Korvac writes in, should I take magnesium with food or away from food? Which is better for absorption? I mean, it depends. If you're doing like a magnesium calm, like a magnesium citrate, well, that's, typically you do that in a water and a drink. So you do that probably a couple hours after food. If you're doing like a magnesium malate or a glycinate, that has amino acids in it. So you could take that with food. I'd have no problem with that. Glitter Girl writes in, Justin, I'm having symptoms of gastritis and bad acid reflux. I've been tested for H.Pylori. It was negative. I've lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. I'm having an ultrasound tomorrow on my gallbladder. So got to get to the root cause of the gastritis. Is it a food issue? Number 1, are you digesting your food well? How do your stools look? Are you breaking everything? Are you breaking things down? It doesn't sound like you are. It sounds like you're having problems with acid reflux, which could be not enough acid, which sounds contradictory. There could be infections. Maybe H. pylori would be one of the big ones I would think of off the bat because of the acid reflux. And of course, I'd want to make sure all the inflammatory foods like gluten and dairy and kind of a paleo template is generally followed. That'd be helpful. But that's your first step, and then that may help a lot of the gallbladder and stuff down the road. But do that first and then check in later. Elizabeth writes in, I have MS, I imagine multiple sclerosis, and I'm wondering if remission is possible. Yeah, it is. Definitely is. Take a look at Dr. Terry Walls's book, Minding Your Mitochondria. She was wheelchair bound with MS, and she was able to resolve it. Take a look at the Walls protocol, WAHLS protocol. Anne writes in, what products of yours help the drainage symptoms? So typically, one of the big things for drainage is going to be ginger tea. Ginger tea is excellent because ginger helps things move. It's a natural anticoagulant. It just keeps things moving. Other things you can do are burdock root, burdock tea. You can do red root or red clover is excellent for helping the lymph. Those are probably the 2 or 3 best things for lymphatic support outside of just getting inflammation down. If you can get inflammation down through your diet, that's going to help things from being sludgy, because the more inflammation is there, the more cells tend to stick together and coagulate and kind of move like molasses. So if we can get inflammation down through our diet and lifestyle, that makes a huge difference. Little girl writes in, I have acid reflux and stomach issues since age 11. I'm 50 now. So you got to get to the root cause. You got to see a good functional medicine doctor, get your diet right, get your gut looked at. There could be some infections. Of course, the big one would be H. pylori. Javier writes in, I have really bad breath. Sometimes it really smells like plastic kind. I notice sometimes my pee smell for the same couple of days, but it goes away. No bad breath. What could it be? Well, when I hear bad breath, I'm thinking some type of poor digestion or bacterial issue going on in the stomach, because typically things that you smell through your breath, it's going to be in that esophagus or stomach area. So I'm leaning to maybe H. pylori or some kind of bacterial overgrowth. Now, your pee smelling, you're going to naturally detoxify things through your urine. So your pee necessarily shouldn't smell great, but it's going to be a means of detoxification. I'm more concerned about your bad breath as that being bacterial overgrowth in the mouth and in the gut. The Revitin toothpaste is excellent for the mouth. That'll help with the oral microbiome, but you got to look deeper at the gut with a good functional medicine doc. There could be SIBO. There could be a SIFO issue as well, small intestinal fungal overgrowth. Got to look into that. Liz writes in, I've been taking the GI map. I found no gut infections, but suspect candida. Well, candida is a biggie. That could definitely be a stressor on your body. The Corvac writes in, would you consider apple cider vinegar good for digestion? Yes, it is. Apple cider vinegar is acetic acid. It's got a nice low pH of around 1.5, 2.5 or so. So that would help lower that acidity, and your pH, your enzymes in your gut, in your stomach are very pH sensitive. So you activate a lot of those proteolytic enzymes with a nice low pH. And Highsmith writes in, what diet is best to help heal a fatty liver? One that is a paleo template, but also keeping the fructose down. Non-alcoholic steatotic hepatitis, NASH for short, which is the common cause of fatty liver, is typically caused by excess fructose and carbohydrates. So get the carbs under control, and you'll see what will happen as your body starts burning fat for fuel versus storing carbohydrates and sugar as fat. Kim writes in, with no prior incidents, my sister had a sudden onset of rosacea. What may cause this? I had a patient this week, rosacea after antibiotic use. Rosacea has an autoimmune component. So first you want to look at things with the gut, things with food, and then potential antibiotics screwing up your microbiome, which then could affect your immune system, which then could spin off and predispose you for autoimmunity. Glitter Girl writes in, I've been gluten and dairy free for almost 3 weeks, was taking a PPI 2 days ago before H. pylori stool test. Does my symptoms sound like a gallbladder issue? I mean, it could be. The question is, what's the cause of a gallbladder issue? Gallbladder issues can be caused by not enough stomach acid. H. pylori can cause that. Gallbladder issues can also be caused by food allergens. I have done a couple of videos and articles on this, so you want to Google that. So those are some stressors off the bat. And of course, other deeper infections could be at play as well. Yeah, I mean, H. pylori was negative. It may or may not be. It depends on the test, what you did. I'd want to run a better test to confirm that that is not the case, because there could be other things going on. How does one become a functional medicine practitioner? So, I mean, most people that become a practitioner are already in like the allied health field. Like they've already had training in like a chiropractic or naturopathic medicine or a medical doctor or a dietitian. And then they basically work on themselves, or they take additional training in nutrition and functional medicine, and they get that training and start practicing and applying it. Now, there are some people that want to go the route of being a functional medicine person that they aren't really in the allied health field already. Then you would look at probably the nutrition realm, like a CCN or some kind of a natural. I think the NTP course has one where it's a much easier route, not 8 or 10 years like the path I had to go, maybe a 1 or 2 year path. And then you can start applying this more of a functional nutrition type of model. But yeah, so there's 2 ways to do it. You're already there and you get the training, or 2, you want to go into it, but you don't want a long, decade-long course, and you go probably more the nutrition NTP route. Hope that helps. Liliana writes in, thank you for your answer to the question. God bless you. Thank you, Liliana. I appreciate it. Renuka writes in, how to contact you online. I'm in Sri Lanka. Oh, awesome. Well, you can go to justinhealth.com and click on the schedule button, reach out there, and love to get in touch with you, Renuka. Jimmy writes in, any tips on how to lower your blood pressure? I get lightheaded after I eat. So first thing, if you get lightheaded frequently, if it's after you eat, it could be a food allergen. If you have lower blood pressure, there could be adrenal issues. Now, when there are adrenal problems, it's harder for you to hold on to your minerals. So getting extra like Redmond's real salt or extra good quality minerals is helpful. Supporting your adrenals is helpful. Like a lot of the mineral corticoids help you hold on to your minerals. So if you're having a problem, supporting your adrenals is really helpful. Making sure food allergies aren't there and inflammation isn't there, and make sure you're not going too long between meals. Because if your adrenals are that weak, you probably don't want to go longer than 4 or 5 hours without having some protein, fat, and a little bit of carbs. All right. And if your blood pressure is still low, you got to dig in a little bit deeper. But we'll actually use things like licorice to help bring that back up. It can't be a deglycerized licorice, though. Liz writes in, I have my gallbladder removed. Are bile salts self-prescribable? Yes, they are. You definitely need them. Your conventional doctor will probably say you don't, because your common hepatic bile duct in your liver essentially becomes your gallbladder. But your gallbladder concentrates bile like 10 to 15 times more than your liver would, and it's going to hold it. It's going to be a reservoir, and it's going to time it up, and it's going to squirt it out when that cholecystokinin is produced. So you get much better timing and you get much better concentration when you have a gallbladder. So now your digestion's forever altered. So you definitely need bile salts. Glitter Girl writes in, any ideas to find a functional medicine doctor? Mine just want to push drugs. My doctor thinks it's IBS. Yeah, it's tough because a lot of people on the conventional side, they go to a couple of functional medicine courses and then they hang up their shingle as a functional medicine doctor. But it's really hard. If you're on the medical side, like an MD or a DO, it's hard to take 10 or 12 years of training and a residency program and just throw that away. It's almost like they're kind of brainwashed to that way of thinking. So it's hard to push that dogma aside and really practice good functional medicine. It's really tough. So you may want to look at finding someone that has more experience practicing functional medicine than, let's say, allopathic medicine. But it's good to have, your MD rule that out. But I mean, if they're telling you it's IBS is a diagnosis of exclusion, meaning they've excluded all these irritable bowel diseases, and they're just saying this is what it is because everything else has been ruled out. It's a total BS diagnosis, pun intended. Guresh writes in, my brother-in-law has trigeminal neuralgia. Yeah, that's known as tic douloureux. Can you please suggest any solutions for that? Well, it depends. What caused it? I mean, trigeminal neuralgia is like the fifth cranial nerve. It comes right out here, and it can get inflamed. Now, what caused the inflammation is what I want to know. So was there a viral issue? Was there a herpes virus or an Epstein-Barr or shingles? Like, was there a viral issue? Is there any autoimmune issues? Those would be the first couple of things I want to look at to see how the inflammation came about. What was the timing? What kind of stressors were happening when all this went down? Dennis writes in, could muscle stiffness be due to rigor mortis in a living person? Well, rigor mortis only happens after you die. So that's because of, obviously, the heart's not going, things aren't moving. So everything's just like, static, like sludge. So it just gets hard. But if everything is flowing blood-wise, then it's probably not that, obviously. I would look at inflammation. Inflammation is the biggest reason why you get stiff. Excess inflammation. Now, you could be over-exercising too. So you got to look at the root cause. Elizabeth writes in, is there a bile salt product that you can recommend for me? Yeah, in my line, it's called Liver Supreme. It has bile salts in there. It also has beetroot, which helps thin out the bile in case there's sludgy bile. That's important. And then it's got it's got fringe tree and artichoke, which help thin out the bile too, because estrogen dominance can cause that bile to get dudgy and really sludgy. And so we want to make sure it's moving well so it can exit that liver now that the gallbladder's gone. Liz writes it again, have any of your patients had the OAT test covered by their insurance? There may be some. We don't typically deal with the insurance that much, but there may be some that provide their super bill and get reimbursed for sure. Rashawn writes in, notice that fish protein is much easier to digest. What's the difference between fish protein and chicken, lamb, and animal protein? I think it's the purine content. I think the purine content in those type of proteins is just less. It's lighter, right? So your organ meats, your beef, those type of things are going to have a lot more purines in them. Renuka writes in, itchy skin mostly in the evening. Is it food allergy? It's not eczema. So it depends. What's the timing of it? How's it happening? Is it after certain meals? What meals? I want to always get the diet 100% dialed in. Anytime I see skin issues, I want to make sure the diet is addressed, because that can easily drive it for sure. Glitter Girl writes in, I had my ultrasound on my gallbladder 5 years ago. My bile duct was inflamed. They said it wasn't anything to be concerned about. Yeah, so it sounds like you already had your gallbladder removed, right? So in general, you still got to make up. If your gallbladder's removed, you got to make up for that lack of bile so you can digest fat better. Garish writes in, doctor says my brother-in-law, there is a nerve compression which caused the severe pain on his face and brain. But what's the cause? Was there a car accident, a trauma? What was the cause? How did it happen? What was going on when the onset occurred? Glitter Girl, what's your protocol for killing H. pylori? In my line, we have GI Clear 2. We use that for H. pylori. It's got clove and mastica in it. We'll use GI Clear 1 a lot of times, and maybe other herbals in my GI Clear line. It depends. A lot of people just don't have H. pylori. They have other things going on at the same time. So it depends. Agnes writes in, what do you think about diatomaceous earth? What's your dosage for the average adult with any obvious known reasons? Just trying to detox in case something is going on deep inside. So diatomaceous earth is primarily silica. It works great. It digests critters by dehydrating their exoskeleton. That's how it works. So you can go up to 2 tablespoons with water spread out throughout the day. It works great with your animals too. If they have worms or parasites, it can be really helpful. You can also put it on like a ant's nest out in your yards. If you see a bunch of ants, just pour some DE on it, and that will actually dehydrate their exoskeletons and kill them. Can a man have both man boobs, high estrogen, and hair loss, high DHT at the same time? It's possible. Yeah, it's definitely possible. Again, a lot of people that have high estrogen, they have a high amount of aromatase, and aromatase drives testosterone to estrogen. And then DHT will happen as well, especially in the environment where there's lower selenium and there's lower zinc. And of course, insulin resistance could drive that as well, for sure. Goresh writes in, he's now taking Tegretol for the sleep and painkiller. Yeah, so you got to get to the root cause, right? I have not gotten the underlying etiology, how it all happened. Okay, what are the reasons that polyunsaturated fatty acids are considered bad? Well, it just depends. Most polyunsaturated fatty acids come from refined vegetable oils, and the processing of those vegetable oils comes under lots of steps and lots of heat. And that heat, due to the fragility of those fats, tends to damage those fats. That's why you hear like extra virgin olive oil. Now, olive oil is a MUFA, a monounsaturated fatty acid, but people advertise olive oil being processed in a way where it's cold, right, or virgin pressed. So there's not so much heat in that processing, so it doesn't get, let's say, damaged. Now, there are other healthy fats like avocado. You can do that in a way that doesn't damage it. And then a lot of your like corn oil, cottonseed oil, canola, soybean, safflower, all those things can be potentially damaged. Okay, good. I went to a surgeon and they had me eat fatty, greasy food for a week to see if anything was symptomatic. I wasn't, so they didn't do anything. Good. That is good. Javier writes in, if my bad breath is caused by SIBO or SIFO, can that cause tonsil stones as well? Yeah, it can, because your tonsils are part of your lymphatic system, so they will be gobbling up critters and stressors as a way of pulling them out of the general circulation, because there are macrophages in your lymph, and they're like little Pac-Man and women that'll be gobbling this stuff up. So it's very possible. So if you get tonsil stones or tonsils, it's because that lymph is really going to town. Elizabeth writes in, do you do a cyclic therapy for intestinal worms? So, I mean, we will rotate some of the herbs. It depends, for sure. Yep. Michael writes in, do you suggest dissolving thyroid meds, including thyroid balance, under the tongue? For what reason? Potentially, if we have significant gut issues or malabsorption, just to maximize the absorption, to start the absorption in the mouth, and then to ensure that it's already broken down when it hits the stomach, so absorption's better in case the gut's impaired. How long do you keep it there before swallowing? A minute or 2 is fine. Goresh writes in, do you suggest any alternative medication for trigeminal neuralgia? Got to get to the root cause. All you're going to have is anti-inflammatories, corticosteroid, pain medication. None of it fixes the root cause. Agnes writes in, is there anything someone can do for keratosis pilaris, atrophic fasciae on a teenager face? Yeah, more than likely, anything keratosis pilaris tends to be essential fatty acid based. So we probably have poor digestion. And we're not breaking down good fats, and we're probably also not breaking down like good minerals like zinc and good amino acids. So getting the food out that could be driving the digestive issue so we can get those good healthy fats in, we may have to support digestion, but a lot of it's going to be by poor fats. And then obviously that may affect protein digestion, and then obviously good minerals like zinc as well. Is there anything someone can do for, okay, answer that already. Robert writes in, do you sell a product good for SIBO? I do. GI Clear 1 and 6 are great. 4 is good too, but it depends because a lot of people that have SIBO have other things and may not even have SIBO, may have a parasite instead. So you really got to be careful and you got to know what you have. What's the test do you prefer for H. pylori? I use the GI map test. So in my line, I use that. If you go to justinhealth.com/shop, you can get it. That's super helpful to detect H. pylori. But if we're on the fence, we may even want to do an H. pylori breath or even a blood test too, just to be safe. Gresh writes in, some doctors suggest surgery for trigeminal neuralgia, where they say a stent would be implanted between the nerves so they do not compress. Yeah. So you still have not told me the mechanism yet, right? Was it a car accident? Was it after some kind of a viral infection? So the mechanism of action is really, really important. If it was a car accident, then it may make sense to do some kind of a stent if the joint or that area was under trauma. It just depends on the root cause. Rashawn writes in, could you elaborate on the nature of damage from processing of seed oils? Yeah, just the fact that omega-6 fatty acids have a lot of omega bonds. They have 6 omega bonds, right? Omega are the double bonds, right? And that means that they're going to be more heat sensitive, right? They're not going to be as heat stable as a saturated fat. Saturated fat's got a carbon bond and then 4 hydrogens or 3 hydrogens. And so it's like carbon, hydrogen, 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 and then single bond carbon, and then single bond carbon, hydrogens on each end. That makes it saturated, meaning all 4 bonds have a carbon or a hydrogen onto it. So it's saturated. When you start doing double bonds in between the carbons, carbon double bond, that double bond causes the molecule to kink, which causes instability in the fat at higher temperatures. That's kind of the organic chemistry of what's happening there. What about avocados? Is that inflammatory? No, it's not. Avocados are a monounsaturated fat. Really good. Is it high FODMAP? It's a moderate FODMAP. Renuka writes in, what's your opinion for a ketogenic diet? I love it. I mean, I stay keto most of the time. I mean, I've been keto all day today. I had, coffee, butter, collagen for my breakfast. I had like a low sugar kind bar. I also had, lunch. I had a salad with Mark's Primal Mayo, some pickles, whole bunch of veggies, and then some chicken with the skin on it from a rotisserie chicken. I had a kombucha, and then I had cauliflower rice and chicken thighs with grilled zucchini for dinner. And then tonight I'll probably have like a Granny Smith apple and some almond butter and cinnamon. Keep it simple. So, yep, I love a ketogenic diet. Glitter Girl writes in, how long do you need to be off PPIs before testing for H. pylori? You wouldn't need it. You could just test it as is. Garesh writes in, not sure how it started. He has a feeling maybe it started after he had a tooth pulled where the dentist went through a lot of hitting and pulling to take the tooth out. Okay, well, that's a different story. So number one, I'm thinking you got to rule out there could be an infection in the jaw that could be inflaming that foramen, which is where the nerve comes out. So I would rule out infections in that mouth first off. And then I'd have a good dentist go back in there where it happened, and I'd have him go look, because God forbid there could be some bone shards sticking in the nerve root. So sounds like you got to, your brother got a hack job for a dentist. So I would get the best dentist you can get, or oral surgeon, to go back in there and look. And I'd also rule out any infection too. It's really important. All right. And then Dread Reckon writes in, hey, I'm still on broccoli sprouts and my myocarditis has improved so much for the last 6 months. Now trying microgreens and other sprouts. That's great. I mean, if you're doing that, you're not doing a whole bunch of other inflammatory carbs, and those sprouts are very nutrient dense. So I like that. That's excellent. All right. Let me see. I got a Facebook question here. Where are we at, y'all? Let's see here. All right. What's my question? All right. Michael writes in, Hashimoto's thyroiditis does not affect your pulse rate, causes fever at night, no sleep, and inverted cortisol. It does affect your pulse rate. It does, and it could cause a fever at night, and it could cause those problems because you're spilling out thyroid hormone potentially at higher levels because of an autoimmune attack, and that hormone gets into your bloodstream and could raise your metabolism, causing your heart rate to go up. So that's very possible. Great question, though. All right, guys, I'll be back tomorrow morning. I think I'll be back at 8 a.m. I'm taking a plane out, taking the bird out around noontime. I got a couple of patients before I go, but I'll be back here bright and early, probably even before I have my coffee. So you guys get to see me caffeine-free tomorrow, bright and early, 8 a.m. You guys have a phenomenal night. Look forward to catching you all later. Thumbs up, give me a subscribe, comments below. Really appreciate your feedback, y'all. Take care. Bye.